what's interesting is that people don't realize that somebody who's suffering from PTSD could be somebody who's actually creating their own self-destruction. And that kind of leads into what we see, unfortunately, is suicide. So when you have somebody who's you're noticing that they're not quite themselves and they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing things that are fairly reckless, it's probably a reason behind that.
Okay, let's go.
All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Aaron Bryant. You are listening to Coaching to Change with me. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for basically listening in on either YouTube or iTunes, Spotify. I mean, all those different streaming channels. We're on them, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much. As you know, my background as a combat veteran shifted into going into being a professor and, all these executive roles in IT. Then I shifted into going into medical field. And then now I have shifted into, after being a coach and developing my expertise in mental health, I actually went into becoming a psychologist. So I've kind of circled around and truly found what my true passion is. So I want to thank you for trusting me, continuing to follow and subscribe, because it's been a long path, a long road. I've been doing this for a long time. It has come to the point where I have traveled around the world. I have interviewed, talked to, studied, researched, and I have continued to pursue the passion of educating myself so I can turn around and not just understand what it is that allows myself to process, allows myself to function, allows myself to even understand, but more importantly, by working with others, talking with others, assisting others, I have gained so many practical capabilities in my performance where I'm able to return that and absolutely been able to help other people. So I want to say thank you, because it's been a very rewarding path, and I continue to do this. I've already published my third book, which is coming out at the beginning of the year, and I would like to say I've already started on the next one. But if you do not follow me, if you don't subscribe, I recommend that you do, because if you do that, you will get a sneak peek into what's coming next on the fourth book. I actually have a title, and the title is called Daily Verses, Your Mental Health Partner. So look for that. It's going to be a sort of a handbook kind of thing, but it's going to give you some inspiration every time you pick up the book. I promise. Every time you touch the book, you're going to get inspiration. So look forward to that. I'm thinking it's going to probably be around the time I'm going to Asia again, because I will be providing a lot of counseling and therapy out there. I've got a partnership going, and I'm really excited about that. So I'll be out there for a couple of months working with people in that particular region, and it's going to be amazing. And it continues to educate me as I work with others. So in the meantime, let's talk about this first topic. Let's talk about the topic we're going to cover today, which, again, we've been doing a series of what's probably my specific passion, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. We have heard me talk about this 1,000 times over. And I circle back because, to be honest, as I said, I'm educating myself, but the reality is that this is something that people don't even realize they actually have to deal with on a regular basis, because the elements of PTSD are so embedded with different things, is that it's important to understand that you might be suffering from one particular thing, but that's a component of PTSD. So with that, we have to cover all of these different things that is truly necessary for us to understand. And what's interesting is that people don't realize that somebody who's suffering from PTSD could be somebody who's actually creating their own self-destruction. And that kind of leads into what we see, unfortunately, is suicide. So when you have somebody who's you noticing that they're not quite themselves and they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing things that are fairly reckless, it's probably a reason behind that. So we're going to dive into that and understand more. But again, before I get into that, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell, make sure you're following, because this series of PTSD and other topics that I'm going to be covering are going to be monumentally important. Okay, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about self-destructive behaviors in PTSD. And what I want to make sure you take away from this is understanding the cycle. Okay, so we're going to talk about how individuals with PTSD, how their behaviors become a way to cope with overwhelming emotions. It's a way to numb the pain of trauma. And that's how they deal with it. It's almost like, if you think about it, if you take medication and you constantly say you get a little headache and you're used to taking some Tylenol. So you pop in the Tylenol. Let's just say it's something light. You say, oh, you know what? I'm only about $1.10, so I'm only going to take 20 milligrams. And then you find yourself having a headache again, and you're still taking that, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, you know what? That's not strong enough. Let me take 2 pills of 20 milligrams. And then you realize again that it's still not enough, so you take 3. And then at some point, when you run out of that bottle is empty, you say, next time you go and purchase bottles, you say, you know what, that 20 milligrams wasn't enough. You know what, I'm thinking you get 50 this time. And then that down the road, fast forward, you're now doing like 150 to 200 milligrams now. So do you see the pattern here? What's going on is that your body is developing, your immune system is basically pushing back against the meds. It's not strong enough. And that's, to be honest, is how a lot of people get addicted to medication. And I already covered that in another show, but I say that in a point where how, dealing with PTSD, we come up with ways to try to numb the pain. And that could be related to, as I hinted towards with the medication, substance abuse. Okay, so, some people feel like when they actually have to take some sort of narcotic or in alcohol, which is considered, could be a substance abuse, you typically are trying to find ways to numb the pain. In addition to that, what about reckless decisions? I told you I'm always going to be transparent. And if you read my second book, Mental Health, you know that I am not somebody who bites his tongue, and I'm going to be very forthcoming with you about different things in my life. And one of those is a time when I remember where I would get on my Harley and I would literally go 90, 100, 110 miles an hour. Now, the difference between a Harley and a crotch rocket, which I used to have, I had a 990 CBR, Honda CBR, and I would zoom on that thing. And yeah, that was very dangerous. However, at least with that thing, being a sport bike, I could somehow be able to maneuver it a little better. Whereas a Harley, that sucker is big, and that's going to be a lot less of a maneuverable bike, whereas the outcome could be quite dangerous. I mean, you're talking about almost like a car. So the thing is, riding that thing at 100, 110 miles an hour because I just did not care is a reckless decision. Some people might go to the extreme in committing suicide. That's a self-harm, intentional self-harm. And people will do that on a regular basis. So these are some of the behaviors that people are going and, basically performing self-destructive, having self-destructive tendencies. While these actions may offer a temporary relief, like drinking or taking drugs or that wind therapy, they deepen the cycle of distress. And I know that firsthand. So I really want you to understand how important this is when we look at examining why PTSD can lead to these behaviors. It's a very dangerous situation, and the facts and the strategies, we're going to have to talk about them, because PTSD in itself is a very dangerous something you struggle with. And unfortunately, my military veterans, first responders out there, people who have are suffering from traumatic circumstances, this is something that affects us. on a regular basis. And I know that my fellow therapists and psychiatrists and there's doctors out there, we're all trying to figure out ways of how to help us mediate. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle to come up with a solution because everybody is different in their own way. Everybody's traumatic experience is different in their own way. Everybody suffers and goes through things differently because your brain is different. You're different. Your background's different. Your situation is different. So it's not going to always have a one, a box solution that's going to just fit perfectly in that situation. It's just not going to always happen. Which is why, specifically with the veteran affairs, it's common practice to just, write a script and hand it over and say, you know what, hey, take these twice a day and I'll see you in about a year. It is what it is. So, these self-destructive behaviors, they stem from, the inability to cope. You're struggling again, you're having a hard time, and these intense emotions that's haunting you because it keeps coming back into your memory bank, right? Whatever it is you went through, it's coming back, it's haunting you, and that is accompanying your PTSD. And it could be, it could be a series of things. It could be guilt, it could be shame, it could be hopelessness. People who are the victims sometimes have a guilt. People who are victims sometimes feel it's their fault. I have I have quite a few clients, more than I can count, that are currently under the impression and going through guilt and shame based on the fact of them being the person that chose the other individual who is the one who actually put them through that traumatic experience. All right, I'll say that again. I have clients that I'm working with right now who are suffering from guilt and shame. All right, and again, that is just a subcomponent of their particular trauma, but that is the basis because they blame themselves because they put themselves in the situation of the person that committed the trauma against them. Now, it's been something I've been working with them on and trying to get them to understand how it's not their fault, but this is some of the things that people struggle with. And then you have, situations where, say for instance, you're, a combat veteran and you just feel like it's just hopeless. VA has come a long way in the last decade or so, but let's go back 20, 30 years and let's see how VA practically didn't do hardly anything for the veterans. And can you imagine a Vietnam vet and how he or she felt and the hopelessness that person was going through? So what do you think they feel their options are? I can think of a friend of mine right now who has committed suicide, and I think that he obviously went through a situation of hopelessness, and that's why he made the ultimate decision that he did. So, you think about the trauma and how it disrupts the brain. It's having a difficult time leaving the individuals with a constant sense of unease and that hyperarousal. Okay, so you gotta come up with ways to manage these feelings, and some may, like I said, you turn to substance abuse. That's drugs or alcohol, and allowing that to numb. So you're constantly drinking, and morning and night, your drinks are getting stronger. It's going from a glass of wine, which is about 13.5%, to a tequila, which is going to be about 20 to 30%, and then 40%. And you upgrade your tequila to whiskey, and so on and so on. Next you know it, you're drinking 50% alcohol. And if you really want to get your hands on some serious stuff, like I've seen in Mexico, you can go 80% very easily. And again, similar to the narcotics, your body just starts adapting. Risky behaviors, endangering yourself by going into dangerous activities, and just, and then you got the self-harm. These behaviors, although they're harmful, can, they just temporary. Okay, it's that constant flood of intrusive thoughts and trying to manage that emotional distress. So you think about these things and how does it impact the person? I mean, they may seem like a form of relief. And if you're somebody who's doing this and you're listening right now, let me tell you, it's temporary and it can also cause some serious consequences. So I need you to rethink what it is you're doing. And if you know somebody, you really need to have a conversation or have them give me a call. There's physical health risk because, again, substance abuse and self-harm, those things can cause some serious health complications. If you're drinking on a regular basis and you're drinking alcohol constantly, guess what's going to happen to your inner? Guess what happened to your body, your organs? All right? Your liver is not going to function very much longer if you're drinking straight up tequila. Trust me. Not that I know that. I mix my tequila. But I'm saying this is not cool. You know, reckless behavior, that could alienate yourself, you know, with a relationship with somebody. Your strained relationships can be something that could end up losing your kids, your significant other, even friends. You start to, and I've talked about this on other shows, where you start to isolate yourself, or you're going to become isolated. And those, you know, destructive habits, you know, the feeling of shame and hopelessness, or even let's talk about financial or legal consequences. The decisions you make can actually lead into some serious economic instabilities, legal troubles. I told you the situation about me on the Harley, and I'm going 100-something miles an hour. Guess what? In the state of California, if you go over 80 miles an hour, in some specific areas, and most areas for that matter, that's considered reckless endangerment. So it's not just a simple ticket of speeding, all right? So that could put me in some serious legal trouble, which means now I gotta go get a lawyer, and that impacts my financial status. Not to mention my reputation, possible felony. Guess what? Now it could impact my job because you're not supposed to have felonies at that particular employment. It's a domino effect. All right, so if we're finding ourselves in this situation, if you're listening and you're saying, okay, Dr. Bryant, I hear you, I'm listening, okay? All right, well, what kind of strategies, all right? How are we gonna break free from this self-awareness, support? We got professional guidance, all right? So if we're gonna have these options, we have to figure out how we're gonna approach it, all right? How are we gonna deal with that? So let's talk about identifying that particular situation. All right, so let's keep it simple. Number one, all right, let's talk about the triggers. I talked about that before, that word trigger. That's something that happens that basically will cause you to have some sort of reminder or remembrance or a memory point that's going to take you back to that specific situation. It could be being in a certain area. It could hear a name. It could be something that it could be anything that will remind you of that unfortunate situation. So understanding the situation or the emotions that lead to that destructive action, okay? And the first step towards changing them. Let's figure out a way. So how about let's write it down. Let's journal, okay? Let's work with the therapist. Let's figure out how we can get past that point. Because if we understand that this situation has just happened, now we are a little bit ahead of the game. So we're figuring it out. I remember there's a situation where, for me, there's a certain area that I avoided because I knew it was a trigger. So for me, I had to avoid that particular area. So again, these are all things that gave me a sort of an advantage because I was able to identify that trigger. Number two, let's develop a healthy coping mechanism. Okay, so that means replacing the harmful behaviors with something that's a little healthier. That's a different alternative. Okay, and that means it could be anything. It could be engaging in physical activity to release tension. Therapists love to say go exercise. They love to say that. Go to the gym, get that stress out of your system, go to the gym. That's a great coping exercise. These days, we have all of this holistic stuff going on. So let's practice mindfulness, managing those overwhelming emotions, so yoga, breathing techniques, mediations type, or meditating, sorry, not mediation, meditating, these are the things you could be doing. Practice mindfulness, practice wellness techniques. These are coping mechanisms. All right. And then again, I'm going to circle back to something that I know that works, not for me. Well, I guess in a way I do it because I write books a lot, like it's coming out of my ears. And going through, when I was, going through psychology, man, all the research and go back to my PhD, I was just such a fanatic on writing. Although I don't like journaling, which is what my point, which I'm getting to, but I like writing. So for you, maybe journaling your day-to-day activities, journaling how you feel, journaling your emotions. All of these could be different types of journaling, anything that you might feel that you can do. But I guess my version of journaling is taking notes and writing down my ideas based on the outline that I put together, and the next thing I know it, I have another book. That's probably my journaling. So, finding that art inside you to express those inner struggles, which by definition is why I end up writing these books. So I guess I'm doing it in a way too. All right, so how about number 3? Let's think of number 3. That it would be somebody like myself, seek professional support. Okay, it's really tough to do this on your own. So, when you seek professional support, and I can say this firsthand, the things that we're taught in school, the things that all the tools we're given, they're amazing. And I'm so glad that in my studies of psychology, we have learned how all the different founders of different techniques and all the different ways of providing therapy, and there's some very unique ways, but some of those are really at the forefront, like trauma-focused therapy. Those are some of the things, client-focused therapy. These are just some things that utilizing, their particular ways of communicating to you and me to be able to avoid and get down and to the root of the trauma, whatever it is that's driving those self-destructive tendencies. If you have an addiction, that one you just need to go get treatment, find a professional, and you're now crossing into something that's a little bit more serious, where you need a psychiatrist, you may need some medication, you may need to isolate yourself. There's programs out there designed for substance abuse, and they'll give you the tools to help you figure out how you can manage the cravings and how to identify it and avoid and balance those triggers. So again, number 3, get the professional support that you need, because that is going to be something that's going to help you get over that hump and get you going to recovery, get you going to getting your life back. Number 4, build or find your support network. I say that because you may already have it, you just don't know it. You've probably been avoiding it. But build a network, basically people around you. It could be people in your, where you're at, if you're at some sort of resort, or you're out there getting help. But basically reach out to loved ones, reach out to other support groups that are in your community, join it, be a part of it. They're going to try to help you, help you be accountable for what you do. They're going to encourage you. They're going to support you. And if you find at any point you're not getting that, well, then you might not be in the right one. So keep that in mind, that the more people you have around you, the better. I know that as a veteran, especially being a airborne ranger, whenever I talk to another fellow airborne ranger and we have a get together or reunion, I feel so much better when I'm around those individuals who understand what I've done, what I've been through, what I've seen. It's just an amazing feeling, because being such an elite soldier in the military, and to be able to be surrounded by those individuals and having shared the things we've done, it it makes a world of difference. And so I take that and you apply it to, if you have a particular problem, these individuals will understand your problems. These individuals will understand your urges. They'll understand how you feel. They'll understand the fight that you have to go through. So please, find not just family members and friends who are going to get you going, but then individuals who are going to understand you. Number 5, let's focus on compassion, self-compassion to be more specific. Feelings of guilt, and self-loathing, that is so common, but it's so self-destructive. And I'll raise my hand because I've been there. You get to a point where you are almost where you just don't want to get out of bed, and you're going back to feeling like very guilty of what you've done. You're feeling guilty of the repercussions from what you've done, and it's very difficult to get past that. So practicing self-compassion, such as speaking to yourself kindly, saying you are a good person, you have a good heart, you're doing the best you can. Every day we're going to achieve this. Recognize your resilience. This can help counter those negative emotions, which is exactly why I'm going to publish my publisher is going to publish this next book, is because it's going to be your partner. I said, it's in the title, I said your mental health partner. And that's going to be something that you can open up and you can take any page in that book, and it's going to be something that's going to give you that slight inspiration. It's going to give you that positive emotion, that positive support. I promise you're going to love it. So please, if this is something that you struggle with, and you beat yourself up too much, you're struggling with your guilt, you're loathing way too much, this is something you want to do. So get my book, and we'll basically, achieve what we have to achieve together. So breaking the cycle. Like I said, you're going through a situation, a cycle of harm, and you're being self-destructive. So we gotta figure out a way to cry for that relief, and basically to find a way to unprocess all that pain. They can be replaced with healthier coping strategies, and we discussed that. By you seek the support, you address what it is, you identify the trauma, you get ahead of it, you practice how to appreciate who you are, and you figure out ways to gain control, and you move forward with your healing. You got to move forward. You cannot stay in the bed. You cannot accept all of the emotional depression, the emotional turmoils, all of that, the pressure from that. You got to find ways to move forward. Recovery is not a straight line. Recovery, and it's not easy. It definitely is not easy. And one of the things I've said before is that I cheat, and I cheat by learning as much as I can, talking about it as much as I can, and therefore every time I'm talking to either the podcast, or I'm talking to a person, or I'm helping somebody, I'm actually finding a little bit of my own healing in the process. So every effort to break that cycle is a step towards a brighter future. And that's all you need to do. You just have to find ways of figuring out how to cope and how to move forward. So these are just some of the strategies, and hopefully you will, it's going to help you. Maybe not all. Pick one, pick two, figure it out, and give me a call, send me an email, contact me, subscribe, follow, listen. Get on my Instagram page. Every day on my Instagram page, there is a daily quote. There is something that's talking to you that could give you some insights on something. So, on that note, I want to thank you for listening to Coaching to Change. I am your host, Dr. Aaron P. Bryant. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I get a lot of comments on how well this podcast is. I get notification, the different hosts of the different channels send me things about how much has been downloaded, and it really does make me feel like I'm doing something right to help others, which is basically my existence at this point. I'm not gonna lie to you. So thank you so much. I do this because I truly believe in it. I found my passion. I found what truly inspires me. I'm a work in progress. I am no better than you are. I'm no less better than you. I'm just another person who's basically trying to figure out ways to be able to get through every day. And unfortunately, I was given a huge setback in my life by serving in the military, which I am very proud of. But at the same time, all the things that I've lost from it, I don't feel it was worth it, but I didn't know that at the time. So I always take it to, when I'm talking to somebody, it's always necessary for them to understand the risk involved. I can't tell you how many parents have talked to me or how many individuals have talked to me about serving in the military, which is an amazing thing to do. However, you have choices. You have choices when you serve. And nobody told me, the true essence of what could happen when you serve, specifically in the field that I did. So again, would I do it again? That's a really tough question. That's a very tough question, because I'm so proud of what I've done. I'm so proud of being able to say that these fellow Rangers are my brothers. It's a hard question, because I've also lost so much because of it, and still at this point struggle with so much. So it is something that I have to live with, but through this podcast, through becoming, the therapist that I am and improving upon, it gives me some comfort to know that maybe it allowed me to find my passion of helping others. So always know that I'm here. Always know you can reach out to me. And if you're struggling, if you're somebody who's suffering, please don't ever take the ultimate decision. If somebody is listening, and if that somebody is not me, there's somebody else to your left, your right, your flanks. Please reach out to somebody, because that ultimate decision you can't take back. But we can figure out ways of helping you and assisting you. And mental health is nothing to be ashamed of. Mental health has way too many elements and complications about it, but there is ways of moving forward. And I am constantly working on helping people to figure out what that is. My name is Dr. Aaron P. Bryant. Thank you so much for listening. And till the next one, we'll talk again. Thank you.